Mr. Vikram Nair.
Mr. Speaker, like most of the others before me, I declare my interest as a practicing lawyer. I speak in support of both bills. These bills involve the setting up of a Judicial Services Commission in Singapore, which will oversee the judicial officers in both the state courts and the Supreme Courts. The Commission's role includes determining the appointment, confirmation, placement on permanent establishment, promotion, transfer, disciplinary control, and dismissal of judicial officers. So essentially, this controls the personnel function. Now, these functions were previously carried out by the Legal Services Commission, which oversaw all legal officers in the public services, including the judicial services, those in the Attorney General's chambers, and those in other public agencies. The Legal Services Commission will remain, but its remit will no longer cover judicial officers. Related to these changes, the Chief Justice, who was previously President of the Legal Services Commission, will now be President of the Judicial Services Commission, while the Attorney General will now be President of the Legal Services Commission. The rationale for such changes is that it allows specialization in each of the services and for the senior officers in each branch to properly evaluate and appoint the officers to that branch. Now, this is obviously quite sensible. There is also an argument that this provides a cleaner separation of powers, with judicial officers cleanly separated from those performing other functions, such as in public prosecution. Now, this separation of functions exists in many other countries, including many in the Commonwealth. Now, having said that, this matter has been raised before, including in this House, and in the past, we had always believed that having a single Legal Services Commission had worked well for Singapore and had certain advantages. This included that officers could be rotated across functions and to develop broader experiences. Judicial officers, for example, could benefit from having had stints as counsel, such as public prosecutors. Similarly, those acting as public prosecutors may also benefit from having spent time as registrars or even as district judges, as they will see matters from the perspective of the bench. Now, there's also a perception that the judicial service would be the more desired branch, and in the past, those in other parts of legal service may aspire to be judicial officers if they performed well. So while I note that the separation of functions does not prevent cross-posting of officers, and the Minister in his introductory statement has stated secondments will be available, will such cross-postings be more difficult now that there are different commissions governing both? Is there also a risk that if an officer stays in one branch of the service, they may not get the broader perspective they used to be able to get in the past that will help them perform their functions better? And does this also mean that legal careers will be set in stone depending on which side of the branch they start in? Clarifications notwithstanding, I support both bills.